give people the chance and see who rises to the top. And they really do.
Just take a small step. One step difference from last year will make your gym that much stronger, will make your team that much better. As the tumbling director, every kid in my program was cleared through me to go to the next level.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are sitting down with my two amazing friends, actually one of our first set of guests on the podcast way back when, and they just absolutely crushed it. So many downloads, so many of you listened to them the last time they were on, and really excited to have Jess and Adam Forte on the podcast today to talk to you about everything that they are doing and give you some of their advice on how you can just crush it in your gym. So for those who did not listen to the previous episode, which means that they're lazy and they didn't go back and they're missing out. So go back and make sure you listen. Would you mind telling people a little bit about yourselves and what it is you guys are up to in cheer?
Yeah. We try to be up to everything in cheer, all the things. We have always took a deep dive in every aspect of cheer. Starting as gym owners. We owned a gym for 17 years, which this past, our last season was 22-23, and decided to go full force with Forte Spirit Solutions. Gym ownership was amazing. We had an amazing run doing some incredible things with our program that only allowed us to be able to give resources to other gym owners and coaches, which we had to develop on our own. So by being in Albany, New York, a very small city, a very small market, we had to develop a lot. And of course, we're not small market like some other gyms that have, 900 people in their town. But there is gyms out there that, it's hard to bring in clinicians. It's hard to bring in someone to get in there and do some work for you in your program. So how do you train your staff to do that? How do you become self-sufficient? So that's what we do. And I'll let Jess elaborate a little bit more on what we do.
Yeah, so I actually started the gym in 2006, and my catalyst for starting the gym was because the Albany, New York area, that's where we live, was so far behind in cheerleading. I mean, back in 2006, we were still in our area flying on the left leg only, whereas traditionally throughout the United States, most people were flying on the right leg. And
flying left and twisting right.
And we were doing a heel stretch and then twisting down the other way. So we were so far behind, and having been to college in Texas and gone to high school in Texas, I had seen the world of cheerleading and where we were going, and kind of wanted to bring that to upstate New York. So we did that the past 17 years, and now are solely focusing on the consulting business so we can try to bring that knowledge and passion and love of the sport to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, awesome. So you had mentioned kind of being out in this small area and doing things that maybe were quite literally backwards compared to at least what everyone else was doing. So how did you guys learn or know that everyone else was doing it wrong compared to everyone else? And did you have an aha moment? Yeah,
I think for me, it was a lot of aha moments that Jess brought on to myself because I grew up in the area. So I came into the sport in this area where this is just how things were. I mean, in my high school team, we won everything and we literally put up preps and extension and walked around the mat. Really didn't do much past level 2 stunting, but that's all I knew, and even back, I remember being in high school being like, I want to take this to the next level. I have notebooks in high school of writing down all-star gyms and using the other guys on my team to become coaches with me and stuff like that. But I didn't realize how much further the sport could go. And it was when I started cheering with Jess at the University at Albany where I was like, I really want to do more in this sport. And she's like, well, there's this gym in Miami called Top Gun. They're really good. And I was like, oh, really? And I started watching that. And that's when Pro X was out a long time ago where we saw the first standing double fulls and we saw some incredible stunting that was never before seen, co-ed stunting. And we started seeing that and said, okay, this is cheerleading. What we were doing up here is not cheerleading. And It's consistent. You see these large co-eds. You saw these large all-girls back in the day doing consistently the same thing. It was, back in the day, a full up to body position double down. And that's what we saw at the World Championships. And everybody was doing it on that same leg. And everybody was throwing these standing fulls, and everybody was doing these standing 2-back handsprings. And everybody was doing double doubles back then, but before they were illegal at All-Star.
And no one had functioning knees either.
Yeah. Yeah. And we started seeing that, and we said, okay, this is the sport. This is where it needs to go. And if Albany's going to go in this direction, this is where we need to go. And I think the biggest impact was 2008, 2009 was we had a light bulb moment where we were like, we need to level our teams to have everybody on the same team doing the skill. And that was really a turning point in the sport where we started seeing, okay, you could make a team and be a stunter a little bit. And we sometimes see that now, but I just scripted the whole summit. And I can tell you the teams that are winning are majority throwing full team skills. Some way they're still getting the points that they deserve. So back then in 2008, we were like, okay, we need to make one team in our gym the extreme team and level them correctly. And that was the turning point of our gym that set us on success from there on forward. And that was the biggest change that we could have brought to the area, was that technical point.
Yeah, which is just really creating a standard, and then creating some of our core values, which included discipline.
Yep.
Discipline was definitely one of our core values, and I feel should be in gyms nationwide, because that's what's going to create that upward momentum that we're talking about, going from small town USA to, winning the summit, placing high at Worlds, all these things that everybody wants to do. We've just always been students of the sport.
That's it.
Continual sponges. We are always looking to mentors and talking with people, bringing people in, even just watching videos, watching drills, and just being obsessed with the sport.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Learners constantly.
So you guys learned all of this, right? So you started out and you had experience, you had knowledge, and I came up in the same era. I can remember watching those same Pro X videos in my college house and being like, oh my gosh. And I was cheering in college at the time, but, teaching myself how to do a standing full, landing on my face multiple times, but no one could teach me, right? So you guys learned all of this, and how did you then take all of that knowledge and package it up into something that you could train your staff in? Like, how did you get them up to that level? Because the biggest complaint a lot of gym owners have is like, my staff don't know what they're doing. I can't afford experienced staff, or I can't find any experienced staff, or my staff don't know how to coach any of these things. So like, what was your solution?
Well, the one big one was finding like individuals that had the same passion and love for the sport that we did. The reason why, specifically speaking from my sense, Jess had way more experience being at SFA, being in Texas. I was an Albany, New York high school kid that did not have that experience, but I wanted to have that experience. I wanted to create that. So I purposely sought out the people that created the sport to what it was. And fortunately enough, I was able to put myself around a Victor Rosario and have him come to the gym for 4 years. I was able to go find Peter Lesin from Brandon All-Stars and all these amazing instructors and be around them, including NCA. I had to find staff that had that passion, that wanted to be in cheerleading and wanted to go to that level. If they didn't have that, and have that alongside of having a passion for creating their kids to be great and caring about their children or that they coached, they didn't have the passion for the sport and the passion for coaching kids, then that wasn't going to happen. So I first had to hire off of that to be able to have the staff training that we needed.
And most of the time we were hiring people that cheered for us. Mm-hmm. So in the early years, they were adults that were cheering for us because we had open teams. Basically, our open teams were just all of our friends that we wanted to bring in to cheer. So we created the culture. Adam and I both had the passion. And then from there, we started hiring the kids that came up through the gym. And honestly, that was the best. We rarely ever hired anybody outside the gym, and not because we were against it, but because really there was nothing else. We were kind of on an island. We were the only D1 gym for a 2-hour radius, and we didn't have like strong high schools in the area, nothing like that. So we were building from the ground up. And I know that that's the case for a lot of gyms in the United States. And so my advice is that don't necessarily judge somebody that and think that they're too young to do something. If they have the passion and they show potential and they have the ability to be able to work with children and absorb information and all these things, then you can start them in a junior coach program. You can start them, running a little class here or there, and then just see how they do. That's kind of what we did, is just give people the chance and see who rises to the top. And they really do. Some of them surprised us. Yeah.
And I think constantly refining your training as well, right? The sport evolves. It does that. We've seen huge evolution in the sport and the way you coach and the way athletes have changed. Of course, I think anywhere I do a staff training, we can talk about pre-COVID athletes and post-COVID athletes of what we've dealt with and what kids dealt with, and people just changed. Society's changed. We're living in a different time. So how do we evolve as coach? Let's not complain about it. Let's do something about it. So how are we constantly evolving and refining our training? That might have worked. Like, again, world champions in 2006 were doing full up to Arabesque double downs. That will not get you anywhere at the world championships anymore, considering that half of it is a level 4 skill and the body position at level 5. So it's interesting to constantly refine your training. And for me, that's going outside of the sport. That is not taking the basic fundamental training of our sport and then putting it into other sports that are going on. The fitness industry. I love martial arts. Martial arts industry really goes hand in hand with what we do strength training wise. And then fitness in the way of weightlifting. A deadlift is stunting. A hip hinge deadlift is what we are doing from a sponge position through the top. So I'm going out and I'm teaching these motions to my staff and giving them seeds to let them continue to take that knowledge even further. And I want them to learn the same way I did. Like, if they can come to me by watching a video that they saw and said, look at this training, it looks really good. Let's roll with it. Let's try it. Let's see if it works. So it became more of a hand-in-hand type deal as well.
So one of the things I've heard from people over the years, right, is, and I'm sure you guys have heard this too, is, oh, kids these days are different, right? Like, and I can't find any coaches that have the passion that I had. I walked uphill both ways barefoot in the snow, and realistically, like, I can think back to how I was when I was a young college student, and I was I literally just loved cheer, and I made nothing. I think back in that day, I actually bought my own plane tickets to go and coach at JAMS Nationals. Right. And so people have this idea of like, oh, kids these days are just more entitled and they want all these things. Well, one, like, no, you're just doing things the right way by paying for your staff to go work for you. But that's not them being more entitled. That's just you doing it right. But two, I've actually found that over time, especially when you bring them from internal, I've got some young coaches right now that they have the passion. They're watching cheer videos, and these kids have access to something that we never had growing up, which is endless videos of amazing cheer routines and all the content that's on Instagram and Facebook and just training videos that are free and out there. They have so much access, and there are young aspiring coaches who will consume that stuff. But how does a gym owner then take that passion and channel that person to like, hey, I want you to learn these things though, because as much as there's a lot of content out there, just like anything with the internet, there's good and bad. So how do you make sure that your coaches how do you build that self-sufficiency and build those coaches up without, like you said, the resources to bring someone with all the experience out to the gym, pay for the flights, pay for the hotels, all that stuff? Like, what can people be doing?
I think that there is some validity in that kids are different these days, and that's okay. Instead of us just griping about it, we just have to pivot. But you're right. Passion is there. Kids nowadays are less likely to take initiative and less likely to to figure something out on their own. And I don't think it's laziness. I think it's more of lack of confidence and lack of, everything's always been handed to them. Like they've just been told how to do something. So they're being expected to be told how to do something now. And that's okay. So we have to do that. So towards the end of our gym owning career, I'd say the last 3 to 5 years, we were very, very direct with our staff, to the point of every single practice was planned pretty much for them. Mm-hmm. We planned our practices as a gym, and obviously they made it work for their particular team. Like a mini prep team wouldn't be doing the exact same thing as a senior 6 team, but they were following a similar template. The template was created by us, and it made it so that it was super easy to delegate. Adam and I coached no teams the last couple years, and it was okay because we had that accountability, and they felt empowered to be able to be like, okay, well, I have the plan. Now I just got to put it into action using what I know and my passion for the sport.
And with that, and when Jess says kids, I think for us, it's really 21 and unders is what we're referring to at this point. You know, maybe even a little older, 23, sometimes 24. Before we start
refer to some 50-year-olds as kids, just to be fair.
I didn't even know I said kids, but they're kids to me. That's why they're.
It's channeling it, like Jess said, but I also always wanted to leave it open because they're not going to educate themselves unless they start putting something of their own into it. So we had 20-minute meetings once a week. That was via Zoom at the end of a Sunday at 8:50. Hop on. We're just going to talk real quick. Here's some gratitudes. Tell me what you're thinking. And get out the little things. Hey, make sure you pick up your binders at the end of the night type stuff. And then we would do a quarterly meeting where we were able to sit down and really refine stuff. And I just wanted to create a culture where, yes, I'm going to give you everything that you need to, but I want to also create a place where they could begin creating curiosity. And how can we make things better? Do you like doing this motion before we do this skill? Do you like training in this way? I might not like it, but if the majority of us do, let's go for it. And then if it comes back and I say, I told you so, then so be it. That's okay. Let's learn. I think we have to remember what these kids go through up till they're 18 years old. The school system up until they're 18 years old is do what you're told, sit in a chair, listen, and here's the education you have to learn versus what you want to learn for the most part. Mm-hmm. There are some great schools that do go out of the way to do that, but for the most part, I know from New York, it is very stringent in our plans, very stringent in what you learn, the curriculum you learn, and you are to follow this. And the kids that aren't really interested are sometimes the kids that had trouble in school. Then they get out and they go into the real world and they flourish because they take this curiosity. A lot of my coaches were those people. They were the ones that struggled, but then became these great coaches because they're doing what they love and they're following that. So if I stifle their voice and say, you're only doing it this way, one, it could not allow us to grow because they're watching that sport a heck of a lot more than I do sometimes. And because I have so many things on my plate as a gym owner. And two, they don't have any autonomy in becoming themselves as a coach. I just, as a gym owner, need to make sure it follows the culture.
Okay. So if you were to focus on a new coach, young, passionate, they were a decent cheerleader, they're coming on to coach, what would be like 3 things that you would want them to have mastered so they could actually be successful? I've never asked this question before. I'm just trying to challenge you.
I love it. I love it. It's a great question. The big thing that I come back to, and it's really the same boat, is one, grit. Is if they have some grit when things get hard, you're dealing with a hard parent, you're dealing with a bad day at a competition. Can you face that adversity and get back on the horse for your kids and put it aside and say, we're just going to be better? The other one that we like to talk about a lot in our training was hustle. So grit and hustle kind of go together. If you have some strong grit, you can hustle pretty hard. We hustled our way through having a house at 23 years old by doing private lessons. We just worked and we grind and we put it in. And if they could understand that concept, that if it's, I'm tired, but there's a kid asking for a private lesson, you take it. You take that opportunity because you're not going to be able to do that forever. Those are two.
And then I think the last one would be humility. Just being able to say, like, oh, yeah, I probably could have done that better. Because the coaches that have their walls up, that are always on the defense, they're less likely to learn. So they're just always so focused on defending themselves. Even if they know that they didn't necessarily do it the correct way, they're so focused on that their growth is stifled.
Okay. What about skill set? So those are like all personality traits, a little harder to teach. So we've got some people with some grit. We've got some people with humility, got some people with some hustle behind them. What would be like some core competencies that you would want to at least initially train them on?
So our favorite module that we do with staff across the United States, but we did with our own staff as well, is called enthusiasm. It sounds like really, really simple, but it's really the basis of our sport. So if you have a coach that is super passionate and has the grit and all these things that you want, but they can't necessarily display it to their kids, then they're not going to be a super effective coach. So we actually teach the way that you can portray enthusiasm. That's one.
Making the learning fun, making it, having the excitement the same way that you would on a sideline to a kid, and making it fun for them to want to learn a skill, because that skill set of making it exciting for the kid will make it fun for you to teach. And it's more positive atmosphere.
And then honestly, just stunting and tumbling, our basics of stunting and tumbling, which we have modules for on our on Forte Spirit Solutions site. And towards the end, we were just using our own content to train our coaches. And I think just a general knowledge is okay. I don't think necessarily every single coach needs to go from level 1 to level 6. We usually like to train level 1 through level 3 for all of our coaches, even if they're not coaching up to that level, just to have an idea of those 3 levels, but with stunting fundamentals and basics, as well as tumbling fundamentals and basics.
I'll take it even deeper. Underlaying all that is, if you can understand shaping, understand basic shaping of an athlete, what shapes they need to be in. They mimic to stunting, the same ones that mimic from tumbling, they mimic to stunting, mimic back. If you can find those simple things, those simple shapes that I'm looking for, range of motion, mobility, stability, flexibility, and a basic knowledge in that, which of course I teach. If you can understand those things and understand what the body looks like in each position, and of course that's going to be something you grow, but starting with, like Jess said, with the lower levels of understanding that, it'll create a great foundation for the rest of the future for your coaching. How many times are we correcting a round off when we're working with a double full? Simple as that. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, round off is always like, when people are like, what's one thing to teach? I'm like, you need to know how to teach a correct round off. You can't do that. Like, you're not a very good tumbling coach. But yeah, so we've got some modules, we've got some things that you can train people on. How much should owners be having their coaches train? I feel like I get asked this question a lot, like, how much should we be training? And I think the other additional question is, how do you get your staff to train? Because I know a number of owners that use your product and think it's fantastic, but getting the coaches to actually get on and do it is it's the hardest thing. It's like, you do everything you can, you get the gym membership, and you just don't go. And so how much should coaches be training? And do you have any tips or tricks to get staff to actually utilize resources that a gym owner is paying for?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I think about is once a week is key. Really good learning is an hour a day, but that's a lot with what you're asking a coach to do, who's probably a student and going to school full time, if they're not a student, they probably have a full-time job. And that was really where my theory of practice structures came from, just because I wanted them to be able to go print something off, be able to look at practice structures and have a outline, or just follow the whole thing and you have a good practice, so that they could go do that and then allow them to fully be invested in their practice, versus sometimes having to think about it on the fly and they have all these other things going on. So once a week, is if you're putting an hour in a week of just going in and watching portion of a video, and then using it to implement the next week, then take that learning that you did for that one module or that 1 hour of training and try it for the next week and see where it works for you. And it might need to change. And that's why I always have forums on every aspect that we do of, hey, where can I help you even more? Do you need another set of drills for this? Like, I want to know where you struggle in the gym. It's not just me saying, oh, here, this works. No, I want to know what you're going to struggle with because kids are different everywhere. I talk about this in my training model. We coach individuals. We don't just coach teams. We coach individuals. So I need to know the different variations, and you might help another coach by doing that. So collaboration is one of our core values at Forte. But to get coaches to do this, it takes the accountability from whoever is in charge. For example, when I ran my tumbling program, I was a tumbling director on top of the all-star director, on top of being a gym owner and whatever hat you else want to throw on. As the tumbling director, every kid in my program was cleared through me to go to the next level. By me having that one person do that, we didn't have discrepancy in like, well, this person let them do a round off handspring tuck when that person isn't even letting them move on from round off multiple handsprings. Okay, that can't be a discrepancy. Confusion creates confusion with the parents. Parents get frustrated. Parents leave. So us having somebody that holds staff accountable, and it doesn't have to be the gym owner, but it has to be somebody that's the gym owner says this person is in charge of this spreadsheet. Did everybody do their video this week? A, B, C, check mark it off. If they didn't, does that turn into a write-up? If that happens again, then is it a meeting with the gym owner? It is that important in my eyes to be a continuous learner in this sport because your kids are at safety risk. And if you can't teach the skill and you're just saying, hey, go for it, there's going to be an issue that could be pretty drastic for the gym owner.
So the way that some gyms have been doing it is actually putting it in the staff schedule. So our staff training, the idea behind our staff training is it's only 5 to 10 minute videos once a week and with a 5-question quiz. So max, it should take you 15 minutes. That's max. It could probably take you 10 minutes. The gym owners have been putting it on their staff schedule, maybe 9 to 9:15 on a Wednesday. They all can come in the staff room, all get it done at once, finish it, send it in. And then actually we have a new thing that the gym owner gets a report of emailed to them. So they don't necessarily even have to remember to go into the platform. They get the report. They say, okay, these 3 people did the training. These 2 didn't do it. Now I have to follow up and do my due diligence there. And like Adam's saying, it doesn't have to be the gym owner. Maybe it's somebody else that's keeping the staff accountable. To your question, how much should we be training? A little bit once a week is great. And then quarterly, some larger staff trainings. And that could just be run by somebody who's really knowledgeable in your gym. Maybe it's a 2-hour spotting clinic or something, or maybe you bought level 1 through 3 stunting and tumbling from our website and you're going to sit everybody down. We're going to watch it. Maybe it's going to a next gen conference and bringing everybody. And that's our quarter. That's for our June quarter.
Or maybe it's just a reward to the staff member that went above and beyond and watched over 20 to 25 of those skill school videos. And hey, you know a lot of stuff now. You've gone in there. Not everybody has the hours to go in there. So let's sit down in a quarter and go over what you've learned and some things that we can implement in the program to make us that much stronger. And
then to add on to that, in order to incentivize these things, it's helpful to financially incentivize when the staff increases their skill ability. So we actually had tests that they would take. It was a practical test and a written test whenever they wanted to level up to be able to coach us the next level of tumbling. And they had to show proficiency in spotting and drills, as well as be able to score at least a 90 or above on the test. And every single time that they were able to level up, their rate for private lessons increased by $2. So so a level 1 coach would be at this one rate. Level 2 coach, they would get a $2 bump. Level 3, $2 bump. And so coaches were incentivized to keep learning, keep up leveling, and become that level 6 tumbling coach.
Yeah, I love building an incentive. I think that's great. And that's where a lot of gym owners struggle, is how do you build that incentive? Because we want them to just be naturally, intrinsically motivated. And I mean, yeah, that's great. Just like we want all of our athletes to be just intrinsically motivated and get in the gym and work all that extra. But, we're dealing with human beings. So,
right.
I love that. We have a little bit more time. You guys are doing so many unique things in the industry, and I'm going to call it out. One of the things you do that really no one else is doing is a choreography training program. Tell me a little bit more about your guys' choreography intensives, because to my knowledge, no one does it.
That was all on me. I was a choreography guru.
Perfect.
I was like, you're actually
step to the side. Yep.
I was like, you're not going to talk about this right now. So this is my baby, and it's 100% built on my passion. The problem in our sport, and I'm just going to call it out, is that we still have too many choreographers that treat children terrible. That's just what it is. And there are so many good choreographers too. So many good ones. I have so many friends in the industry, but there are still ones that come in entitled, thinking that they are owed something and just don't treat children the best. So my solution to that is we need to create more choreographers that are doing it for the right reasons, that are coming into gyms and empowering the gym owners and the coaches to be a part of the process. When I come in, one of the best compliments I got last year was from a first-time gym that I hadn't choreographed before. And when I was leaving the gym, one of the coaches said to me, "I love what you do, because it's not like you come in with these ideas and like you just do it and this is how it's going to be and it's set. And you come in with like so many ideas, and we collaborate together and we create a routine that's like feels like mine." And I could have cried, because that's my vision. My vision is that when I walk into a gym, it's not my routine that's being created. It's our routine that's being created. And when they put that routine on the floor at All-Star Worlds or at the Summit or whatever, it's their routine. It's not mine. It's no longer mine. I have nothing to do with it at that point. I helped birth it, but they coached those kids and they made it happen. Anyway, I think that a lot of people have the ability to be able to choreograph, but we think in this industry that it's like this special unicorn person that is able to be a choreographer. And I don't think it's like that. I think there are people that are more apt at it than others, but there's also so many systems that I've created that if you just follow the system, it works. Last year was our first choreography immersive. We had about 20 to 25 people there. And we had gyms that had never done in-house choreography that committed to doing in-house choreography. And to be honest, they actually did better this year than when they had brought a choreographer in. And I don't necessarily think that's because they're better choreographers than the person that they were bringing in. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it's because they know their kids. And so then they are able to make a routine that is so catered to their team. And then they're able to change it throughout the year, because the routine that you create in June is not going to be the routine that you compete in May. So why not be the person that made that routine so then you can change it? It just makes sense, right?
Also, who else knows the brand better? Your brand of cheerleading that you're putting out. And I always came back to that with our program, was how can we be self-sufficient? Like, how can we keep doing things? Of course, we have to go out and keep getting the education so we can, but how can we do that for ourselves? And even if you're somebody that says choreography, I could do it and I could do very well at it, it's also a good tool to have if you have to do that fix that we all have to do. Mm-hmm. And we all have to make changes, and we all have that task at hand, January and February for sure. So
the template of the immersive is we go through each section of the routine. I talk about the system. I talk about what has worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, some quick fixes, just things that I picked up over time. And then we actually use children and we create routines together. Last year, we did a level 1 routine and a level 2 routine. And we did it section by section. And then at the end, the kids were able to perform the routines and everybody had a part in it, which was really, really cool. So it's an interactive, hands-on experience along with being given the systems that are proven to work.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. It was a really cool experience watching from my aspect, which again, I have nothing to do with it. So was really cool to watch those choreographers grow through that, as well as them not only learning the gym aspect of it, but there is choreographers that we do, and we always usually put it on the front end or the back end of the business side of it if they want to become a choreographer and how to conduct the business aspect of being a choreographer. So that's always a really cool piece, because a lot, just like cheer gym owners that get into gym owning thinking, oh, it's just cheerleading. Well, this is where Next Gen comes in. This is the things that you have to learn business-wise as well.
Right. And someone could still attend that, even if they're like, I don't ever want to do in-house choreography. I still want to hire out because I love my choreographer. Or, I mean, even if you follow a system, still a lot of work to choreograph a routine, but there's still value in learning the process and what makes a routine great. So if someone was interested in those, where would they go to find more information?
Yeah, so the sign-up's on our website. We have Reno coming up really soon, but we still have space available. It's June 1st through the 3rd in Reno, actually at Shelly's Gym. So that's going to be super fun. And then the second one is July 5th through the 7th. So most gyms are closed 4th of July weekend. So we actually put it there so that gym owners would probably be free, and coaches would probably be free to attend. And that one's in Charlotte.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Charlotte's also a very nice area. So if
it is
very
easy to get to. And
yeah, the gym in Charlotte is super close to the airport too. It's like 5 minutes from the airport.
That's right.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's always convenient as well, because then you don't have to rent a car. Like, just so much easier. Okay. So we are running out of time, which is always hard for us. I think our last episode was like an hour plus. So we're keeping it a little bit shorter, but any parting words of advice or just things that you want to tell the audience listening as they head into another cheer season?
This is the opportunity for you to look and own the mistakes that you've made. And the mistakes are good. The mistakes are something that is only going to allow you to be that much better this season if you make the change. If you can't look at yourself and say that I messed up, then you're going to be stuck on this wheel that just keeps going around. That may be putting a team a level that they shouldn't have been. That may have been not developing culture sooner than now. You know, it's all about the baby steps. So if you didn't do those things, just do it now. Just take a small step. One step difference from last year will make your gym that much stronger, will make your team that much better than it did last year. And everybody else is going to be making steps too. So it's a constant evolution. It's a constant looking inward as a coach and saying, how can I be better for next year? As clinicians, we do it. And we say, what do we got to do better with these routines? How can I make the gyms that we go to that much more successful? My stunt warm-up I do is completely revamped this year because I want to be more efficient with it. And I want to give it to gym owners to be that much more efficient, because even though our season is almost a year, it still doesn't feel like enough time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jess, do you have anything?
I think something that Adam and I are really passionate about, and we want to continue to be a resource for, is gym owners feeling empowered to do the things on their own, not feel like they need to, we were talking about earlier, bring in the best and latest person and pay all of the flights and this, that, and the other to have somebody come in and be the magical unicorn that's going to fix their gym. Or number two, sell out to a mega gym, and because it's easy, quote unquote, easier. Running a gym and is tough. It's tough any way you look at it. Mm-hmm. And so empowering gym owners to, just keep fighting the good fight, and that they're doing good work. They're doing such great work, that they're impacting kids, that coaches are impacting kids, and that if they need support, that just find it in the community, because I really feel like the cheer community is really beginning to bond again and support each other in unprecedented ways.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, it is a pleasure. We'll have to do it again, because I think it would be really fun to dive into some nitty gritty details on skills and technique. I think people would just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And although I sit here and talk business 90% of the time, you guys both know I will happily sit around and talk technique of round off and double ups and all the fun, exciting things and trends.
Unlike the choreo immersive, that's where I live. That is my realm.
Yeah, the skills, right? The skills world. I will not be talking music with you though, so that's all on you. You got it.
That's all right. Music is, an interesting animal in itself. But again, another one of those things that I just dove into because music's actually been a part of my life for a very long time. But you have to have a certain passion for it, for sure, because sitting in front of the computer as long as you do for that can be tiring.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode.